All right, let's go back to an issue, the NDIS. I mentioned at the top of the show, blowouts after blowouts, but there's a lot of detail that's sitting behind some of those escalating numbers. My next guest deals with it at close hand. The NDIS is something he lives and works in. The Prime Minister has been out today, though, acknowledging already there's plenty of waste in the NDIS.
Well, that's right. Some of the structural problems which are there, there is some abuse of the system, there is some waste that can be dealt with.
We were told last night too, spending could hit $102 billion a year. It would be then more expensive than the aged pension. Let's bring in Dr Tanveer Ahmed, who, as I said, works in and around the NDIS, and he joins me now from Sydney. Tanveer, it already costs more than Medicare. I've made that point, but Medicare services 25 million of us. The NDIS is not even 800,000. So why has spending blown out on the NDIS?
Peter, I think the NDIS will go down as the biggest public policy largesse in Australian history. It's a luxurious scheme. It's uncapped, it lacks transparency, it lacks accountability. And even beyond that, Peter, like one of its express aims when it was launched by Julia Gillard's government was that it would move the disabled into work. It has not done that at all. In fact, what it's done is it entrenched the sick role. And if I was ever going to design a scheme to encourage extreme over-servicing, it would be the NDIS as it is now.
Yeah, you make the point that it's failed one of its core aims. You're talking about the transition of people back into work. You're a doctor, you're a psychiatrist, you work inside the system. Tell my viewers what you see when you do these home visits.
Yeah, look, it's extraordinary. What I found really striking about the NDIS in recent years, Peter, is, many of my co-workers would be the biggest bleeding hearts you'll ever see. I mean, they would almost certainly vote Green. They wouldn't even vote Labor, I suspect. And many of them in recent years have turned into anti-welfare ideologues, seeing the excesses of the NDIS. I mean, we'll often make home visits. And look, some of these services are legitimate, but often they're getting it in numbers. Like we might make a visit, someone with a moderate mental illness, they're quite physically able, but they might lack motivation. And sometimes you'll have 3 or 4 workers at a time. There's someone cooking a meal, somebody cleaning the oven. You look in the backyard, there's somebody mowing the lawn, and they'll do it all again a few days later. Like it's extra. I mean, the Queen wouldn't get that level of service in some places. So this is where the sheer excess, and some people with autism, they get horse riding, piano lessons, speech therapy, and they get it every week. Again, some of this is appropriate. A lot of it is excessive. And there's just case after case after that. Now, another key point I want to make, Peter, now being a psychiatrist, and it's something I've written about, a lot in recently, where we're getting the over-medicalisation of problems of living. What's happening here is the boundaries of mental illness have increased. The boundaries of disability have also increased, and they're sort of in a symbiosis now. So many things which a generation ago could be losing confidence, just opting out of the workforce because you're finding it too difficult, sometimes just a straight drug addiction. All of these things that in the past might have been given different non-medical descriptions are now all called disability and becoming entrenched in disability and often attract lavish sets of services.
I tell you what, I was there in the Parliament behind the scenes as a staffer, of course, when the NDIS was mooted and then created. And I think it won the people's support because it was meant to be about looking after our most profoundly disabled Australians, or Australians with a profound disability. That's not what's eventuated at Tanveer, and I reckon this is where public support is going to fast fall away. I made the point the other night, on average it's $55,000 for an NDIS recipient. That is double the aged pension.
It's a disgrace, Peter. I mean, if people really knew what was happening here, and again, look, I mean, who doesn't want to help those with a disability? But I think the term is getting so loose and it's really being taken for a ride on many levels. And that's the scheme. And at no stage am I blaming who we call the disabled or the mentally ill. The scheme has been set up to skew incentives in this direction. And it entrenches the sick role. I mean, why would you want to go back to work when you're getting serviced multiple times a day by, all these sets of workers?
And it's a sacred cow that no one in government as yet is prepared to take on. Tanveer Ahmed, Dr Tanveer Ahmed, thank you.